for HUD. Made the Chris Patterson. Oh, yes, my, Chris up here, okay, guys. What else personal? Well, not really, but it's movable, especially if you're getting hit by a tent.
All right, well, I will turn it over to our chair.
Okay.
Renee, and introductions, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, I'll call this meeting to order, and first off, it's introductions, so. Lee, would you like to start? We'll just go around the circle.
Lee Randall, Facilities Director. Eric Nielsen, Capital Improvement Manager, Facilities.
Wayne Powderly, Tunnel Group, Owners Rep.
Patty Dargis County Commission.
Bill Henderson, just citizen member. Bruce Barton, a citizen member too, worked for LRS Architects still, but. Yeah.
I'm Renee Alexander, I work with BBT Architects.
Oh, okay. Will Turner, committee member. Corey Loomis, senior PM with Pence Contractors, the GC courthouse project. Dan Close, committee member. Tom Pfeiffer, committee member.
Daniel Ledesma, community member.
Mark Nisha, committee member.
I'm Nick Levi, County Administrator, observing.
Thank you. Thanks everyone to be here. So we're gonna review and approve the meeting minutes from April 22nd. Any edits or corrections? If not, could I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Great, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Meeting minutes are approved. Next up is Eric and Wayne and Lee are going to give us an update on the courthouse expansion project.
And I should have added Corey to the agenda there, but Corey will be helping us out as well.
Okay, so yeah, we have a slideshow presentation to go through. Generally, we'll talk about the work that's been happening since the last meeting.
Sorry.
And then some ongoing work, and then we'll finish with the budget update on the project. So, let's see. So there's the latest image from just last week or so of the project. I think the last time we met, I was looking back at the presentation and they hadn't yet poured the basement slab. There were some columns in place and some of the cores were in place. So as you can see, they've made some significant progress with the structure. They topped out with the roof level recently. So yeah, since the last meeting, they poured the basement slab, level 1, 2, and 3 post-tension concrete slabs. And then the last slab was the roof with post-tension slab this the last couple weeks. And then they've moved on to some of the mechanical curbs on the roof, but big milestone is that they've topped out with structure, so good progress there. So I'll just kind of run through some photos, and any questions, go ahead and jump in at any time. These two photos, first one on the left is on Harriman Street, shows the expansion up against the existing 1977 portion of the courthouse. So what you can see there is one of the exit stair cores going up, and then yeah, the post-tension concrete decks on the south side of that. Similar view on Bond Street. That shows us the 3-level expansion on the right, and then the elevator core on the left side that will be in the single-story lobby portion of the building. Here's a view of the completed roof level deck. Pretty good views from up there. You can see Pilot View to the east and the Cascades to the west. This view shows tower crane lifting some equipment in place, and then some kind of stud outs of the rebar for the. Oh. Not showing up on the screen. So there's rebar in place for the curb for the main mechanical air handling unit on there. These are this is some form work for the housekeeping pads for mechanical equipment that'll go in the penthouse and the image on the left. So I think they're in place now, or they've been staged, but some of the boilers will sit on those pads. And then there's some more progress on the concrete curb for the air handler. It's about a 4-foot curb. It's reinforced concrete with also has some post tension cables through it, so it's fairly significant structure. Very large air handler that's sitting on there. They started framing up the parapet, so we went with a taller parapet on this project for safety reasons, just to avoid having to tie off on the roof. Also helps with sheriff's office if they're up on the roof, not having to tie off. So when they poured the slab, they placed embeds in the concrete, which allowed them to come back, and then they started welding the tube steel structure to the parapet. You see in these photos. So tube steel is the main structure. It will be infilled with metal stud framing. And they've also started on exterior wall framing. This is a view, the southeast corner of the building at Harriman Street and Greenwood. So you can see that they've started framing the walls, some openings for the windows, and then the exterior sheeting started to come up as well. And sequence wise, they're kind of starting from the lower level, first level, and working their way up the building. As shoring has been able to be removed out of the building, they've been able to come in with the CMU masonry for down at the basement level. There's masonry on the exterior walls, you can see on the left, with a block out for the exhaust in the garage. And then a lot of the kind of partition walls in the basement are also CMU. So these are some storage closets that'll be outside of the public elevator hallway in the basement. Also started plumbing rough-in, again, working their way from the bottom of the building up. So on the left, got some drain lines in the basement level, and then fire sprinkler lines in the image on the right at the first floor. So we've also made really good progress on replacement of portion of the existing roof. So that's a new TPO roof in the white. We decided to replace this roof because it was original to the 2004 expansion, hadn't been replaced since then. So this project was going to tie into that roof, and so it was up for replacement anyways. So we replaced it all so we get one warranty in this project.
The other key part of this is there's multiple expansion joints, and that's one of the areas where typically we have issues over time with leaks. And so from a maintenance perspective, to be able to have that warranty extend all the way to another relatively new roof, which is in the gray there, that roof was replaced about 4 years ago. From a maintenance perspective, it's kind of a real win to know that you've got a solid envelope all the way across the entire roof.
Yeah, and so there's several, well, kind of a complex line of expansion joints between this project and the existing building. So you can see between the new white TPO and the older gray TPO, there's an expansion joint running there. And then the image on the right shows the top of the stair core from the 77 building. And so there's actually a sort of expansion joint around that kind of half circle shape that then ties into this expansion. There's also an old roof drain on that roof of the old stair. We're abandoning that, raising the new roof up so that it drains onto the new roof. Along with the roof drain, there's also an overflow drain, and so. In order to avoid rerouting plumbing through the existing building, we just chose to abandon that drain altogether, shed it onto the new. They've also been focusing on the connections between the expansion and the existing building. The first floor is shown on the left, they started working on the slab and what'll be the lobby. And so the connection to the lobby will be through the left there, and the connection to the existing building is past that circular masonry wall and circular stair. Straight into West Quarter Machine Town. And then similar image on the right, on the second floor, kind of see the red wide flange beam that they've added some structure in there to support wall and roof elements at the connection. These images show the existing roof and then the expansion, third level of the expansion. That structure on the right is the existing mechanical penthouse that serves the main courthouse building now. And then we've added a stair through one of the stair cores so that maintenance can access essentially that. The boilers in the old mechanical penthouse and the boilers in the penthouse relatively easy without having to go down and around the building. And they also started on construction of the one single story lobby structure. Started excavation for foundations, and working, of course, getting the slab poured. This will be, instead of post tension concrete, it will be a cross laminated timber roof structure. So it'll be concrete foundations, heavy timber columns, and then cross laminated timber roof structure. And here's what's coming up. That's on Corey.
Thanks, Eric. Feels like just yesterday we were talking about nothing but structure, so this is exciting. A lot of new things we're starting to turn our focus to, so. It's really kind of top down, trying to get in the dry, falls right around the corner before we know it, right? So, getting our rooftop unit curbs, on so we can finish our, drying on the roof, so all that parapet framing, top down, get ready for, fall, which is coming, and get our exterior wall construction buttoned up. Exterior wall framing is gonna go pretty darn quick in terms of getting sheathing on or vapor barrier on, so at least we're sealed up in principle, so that's really gonna be our focus. You'll see when we go on our tour, we've already started a fair bit of mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-in, and that's gonna continue for many weeks, as well as interior walls and frames. The main lobby is gonna be fun over the next, 4 to 6 weeks and on. That's when you're gonna see that cross laminated timber come in, a very different kind of look from what we've been seeing for a while in terms of structural concrete. And then we are getting a little bit of a jump on some of the existing building renovation work, doing some phased remodel stuff there. Which is gonna really help set us up for success as we get into the end of the project coming into summer next year.
And what's not included on here is removal of the tower crane is planned for September 12th through the 15th. Hence is working with the city on the logistics behind that. Part of the plan, Corey can collaborate, but essentially plan is to close Bond Street for 4 days from the 12th to the 14th to allow a large crane to be placed to lift the tower crane up and over the expansion so that they can pull it out of it.
Yeah, it's quite a process to bring in a little crane to build the medium-sized crane to take down the big crane, and the city was great to work with because we described this is an intense process. We need to do this safely. So we met with them on site and they facilitated us as long as we could pick the right time to do it. So worked out well. Yep.
We looked at, so there's 3 options really. There's Harriman Street on the east, which has a lot of power lines and things in the way. Greenwood being the main artery through town, just wasn't enough and we closed that down. So it really left Bond, as the most feasible option. When they erected the crane, there was a parking lot where the expansion sits now, so they got to move off-site into the right of way.
Yeah, there's still a little coordination to do with Pacific Power. There's one power line across the pond that we have to take down.
Yep.
They're on board with that too, so we're all set for September 12th. Yeah, just big picture timelines coming to the end of structure. We'll have with the lobby, just a little bit there to finish up. Building exteriors well underway and starting to get going on interior. All of which, both exterior and interior, wrapping up coming into spring. Like I said, framing and getting in the dry is gonna go pretty quick. But there's a lot of complicated details with expansion joints and things like that. I mean, all of that flashing work is gonna take lots of time, so. Getting it dry quick, but we'll be working on that exterior for quite a while. And then coming into middle of fall or so, once we get the exterior to a point where we're in pretty good shape, we'll chase around the outside of the building with our site work. So all of our sidewalks and planter walls and all that wrapping up in the spring, and then we'll finish out any remaining renovation pieces, the existing courthouse coming in summer.
All right, any question here?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So, I'm interested in your schedule. So when are you actually gonna open the courthouse part? I mean, some of this looks like you could be in business at the courthouse and still be finishing some of it, or?
Yeah, I think overall, we're looking at a spring completion for the expansion. And we'll have some time in the end for existing building renovations. As Corey mentioned, actually decided to get a jump on those now, starting next week on the 2nd. So that'll kind of tighten up that schedule, but really the expansion finishes in spring. And then once we get the new public service counter windows open, then we can go back and finish the hearing room construction. in this building.
So do you have I don't see there like a line where it says you starting to use the courtrooms. Let's see.
Things the end of March 26th or 7th, something like that.
Yeah.
That would be the move-in
No,
phase for.
So a couple things to bear in mind. So we have the substantial completion date for the courthouse expansion. Corey, do you want to share that?
Yeah, that date is March 27th, so that is, city has signed off and said you can start to.
Yeah.
Move in, parts, pieces and get facility ready for. Use.
So that's substantial completion, March 27th, right, like you said. So we're anticipating probably 4 to 6 weeks for furniture assembly and for state courts to move into occupied expansion. So the actual and the furniture delivery, the furniture setup times, we're still coordinating that with the vendor and working with state courts on what their timeline is going to be to shift over all of their audiovisual equipment operation, the IT operation. And so from the time that we deliver the finished space, likely there will be about 6 weeks of move-in and setup and systems commissioning for state courts. So we're still working with them to determine a final open date, so to speak, for state courts. Based on that timeline, we're expecting that will be likely mid-May. Ish, and again, we still need to, that hasn't been finalized. We have a new trial court administrator. She's still wrapping her head around the project and we're working with them on that. So assuming mid-May occupancy and operational timeline for state courts, that will then allow Pence to finish the renovation specifically in the public service counters. So the existing public service counters, that area is being converted to a hearing room. And also state court administrative offices for the trial court administrator. So once they're out, that allows us to do that work through end of May, June, and then with the wrap up in August. There's also work that was required by code in the basement to finish a new egress pathway out of the existing basement and one additional restroom for jury assembly. And so under the new code guidelines, we're a restroom short in the basement. So the existing hearing officers office or chambers is going to be converted to a restroom. And that we really can't take on until state courts and jury assembly is operating at least temporarily out of the new courthouse. So anyway, that's some of the details to get to those key dates on final.
Will winter affect the completion dates? I mean, or you be so closed in by it, it won't really affect much, do you think?
The big target is to get closed in, and that's what Corey is pushing for, but you have some contingency plans for things like snow and depending on what level of winter we get.
Yeah, I mean, we're very accustomed to, being able to deliver projects, regardless of weather, because there's ground heaters, tenting and all opportunities for flat work. We will be, but to your point, we'll be right in the middle of doing temperature sensitive things in the middle of winter, but we're very accustomed to it. So we don't anticipate any challenges with site work or any of the experiences there. I was here in 2018 though, when we got 3 feet of snow in 24 hours. Not to say that can't happen again, but yeah, we work around it all the time.
And then one of those pictures was the framing on the roof too, for getting that parapet up. Once the parapet is up, you can concentrate on the dry end.
Yep.
And I think, can't remember the date for your target on the dry end. On the roof.
I want to say it was early November.
Yeah, November, somewhere in there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, once we're dried in and then we can continue on the envelope for getting out of the weather.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of temperature sensitive, sometimes if you're just putting weather barrier on, those products are very temperature sensitive. So you can have challenges there, but we're anticipating being able to get anything installed that's not temperature sensitive prior, so.
Any other questions or did I?
Yeah,
catch
that's
that?
what I was trying to.
Yeah.
So how did the roof work on the building joints with the rain we had last week?
Good question. Yes, actually, we'll be stopping by the mock-up on our way, and that would probably be a good question. Is George gonna be there?
You should be, yeah.
That'd be a good question for George. We'll be able to look and see how it works.
They did have the parapets wrapped
Uh-huh.
prior to that rain event, so.
Did we see any leaks? I mean, was there anything that you noticed? Overflows or anything?
No, we were all good.
Cool, good.
Yeah.
One other thing, with the closure of bond coming up and only being closed in that, we've got Franklin closing. As we looked at this really, I mean, the city's really good with this.
We did. We met with the city out there 2 weeks ago, met with Chris Henningsen and Jared, went through. Pence put together a traffic control plan with civil engineer. They looked at all the options and
So people are gonna be able to get out of the city as opposed to when we first closed down home.
Right.
indeed,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's
So
That actually stopped a couple of years ago.
yes. A few specific things. One, we're gonna have a reader board near Franklin as people come northbound on Bond. And the nice thing about closing just that one block of Bond is there's a pretty simple detour to hang a left on the Greenwood and then be able to make a quick right onto Wall and
Okay,
continue
yeah.
north. So the fact that we have a clear, regularly flowing detour was one consideration that helped the city get us to being able to close both lanes. And then the second part is we work closely with state courts. And so that Friday and that Monday, they have light or almost non-existent in-person arraignments or trials going on. And so that was our other concern. And the presiding judge was really supportive and the TCA, and they felt like they'd have no problem operating with it being a little more challenging for people to get in the building. But those were kind of the factors we considered. And then being a Friday to Monday, the bulk of the work's gonna be Saturday and Sunday. We also, we're getting it after Labor Day weekend, so we're open that pause weekend after Labor Day. People will be back in their respective homes outside of Bend and not coming here for vacation as much as say a main summer holiday weekend. So
Well,
those
they're
are-
good. Yeah, they're gonna be at the Pendleton Roundup, so, you know, pick it up again, that's where I'll be.
Actually, I
perfect-
forgot, it was also centered around Commissioner Adair's plans to be in Pendleton. so-
Yeah, so I mean, I'm like, okay, fine, because that's my parking right there in front of the courthouse on the weekend, it's a perfect place to park.
And in the meantime, though, Pence has been able to use the crane to lift equipment up onto the roof. I think you're getting boilers up there and then you construct the penthouse around the equipment.
Yep, we'll use it until the last minute, so.
My question is about the tour today. Are we gonna be able to go on the roof?
Yes, yep, let's see it all.
Cool.
I hope you have the proper shoes on.
What? No work.
They might make you wear booties.
All right, so moving on to the budget.
Yeah.
Wayne?
Yeah, like I said yesterday, the BOCC meeting, pretty boring, which is no news, good news.
I wouldn't call it boring, there was another 800,000 added on to furniture and equipment.
Yes, there was the new item at the bottom of the budget, I think, yeah, Eric will show you on the screen. There was an $800,000 transfer from OJD to Overton County. And that is to cover additional scopes of work we're going to upgrade all the audio visual equipment in the 7 existing courtrooms. And there's also some additions to the new systems furniture in the remodel area too, so OJD transferred that money over to the county to cover it under our project.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is that under our construction MOU with OJD, AV furniture and equipment, all of their accessories down to the gallery benches in the courtrooms are all being funded by and provided by Oregon Judicial Department. So by them transferring those funds for that work to the county, it helps us on the coordination side. And so Wayne and Eric are overseeing that coordination so that we have a seamless move in. We're able to then work directly with the vendors, schedule them in a way that benefits Pence versus having that third party and us being the middle person in coordinating all of that moving work. So that transfer of the $800,000 was completed. It's also earning interest for the county up until the point that it's spent, so.
And then overall, just summary on actual spend to date is just over 23 million. With just over 25 million balance left to complete, so it's about 48% complete. And still a healthy balance left in both the GC and the owner contingency, so we're still looking good there too.
When are you gonna start looking at the owner contingencies? What are you gonna use it for? FFE, that sort of thing, or?
Well, we've gone through, I think we're up to 8 owner change orders so far, miscellaneous added scopes. So that's where we're pulling from the owner contingency to pay for those added scope items.
My goal is to return that to the capital reserve. And so
Okay. That's
just because it's part of the project funding, in terms of our approach, doesn't mean that it needs to be spent on that project. So our goal is that it's truly a contingency. It's there to address unforeseen items and it's there to address any issues that come up in construction that are clearly the owner's responsibility. But if our target goal of any project is to get to the end of the project and have on the owner side, portion of that money internally returned to the county capital reserve, and then on the contractor side, have complete the project with the remaining reserve and then have that returned to the county as well. So realistically, we have contingency for a reason, and likely a majority of it will be spent, but we want to take the approach that we're not going to end the project looking for things to do. We're going to make sure that as closely as possible and what benefits the project, keep it within scope, if that's what you were.
No, that's nice. I mean, I've always seen it go to FFE, upgrades and that sort of thing, which is nice, but if you're gonna do that, that'll be great.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, so FF&E not really provided by the county for the state court.
Upgrades to,
Right.
your entrance way, make it,
Yeah.
marble instead of, or granite
Right.
instead of marble. Oh,
Yeah.
Right.
And on the FF&E side, the stuff that's fixed, that's bolted down in the lobby typically would be the county's
Yeah.
responsibility. If it's movable or if it's part of courtroom furniture specific, it would be theirs. It is a good opportunity. I had some closing remarks on upcoming risks related to contingency, and so to segue from that, thanks for providing segue. There are some things coming up that we were anticipating. One is the city is did you just released yesterday, or we're still waiting on it? The INFR.
Oh, no, we're
edition.
still waiting
We're
on
still
it.
waiting
Still
on it.
waiting on
So the revisions to specifically Bond Street in the right of way work, we're still waiting the final approved revised set of plant drawings from the city. Once those are issued, we anticipate there likely will be some costs associated with some of those changes. The upside is the changes were made to avoid replacing the water line in Bond Street. And so we know there's significant savings to the project, but along with those savings, there likely be some costs. So that's one risk that we're anticipating to know more about in the next 2 or 3 months. The second one is related to beginning the remodel project work. So as we move into the existing 1977 building, as with most remodels, we're expecting that we may encounter some unforeseen conditions or added scope or costs in order to create a good final product. So one item that's already come to light is in the original construction, there are hydronic heating and cooling lines that are run through an existing electrical room. In preliminary inspections, the city is already requiring that we move those as part of the conditions of the permit. So that's something that Corey's team is currently working on final pricing on. We know that will be a cost to the project, either on the contractor contingency side or the owner side. So those are a few things coming up. We still, in looking at the overall contingency, we're confident that what we have in place is sufficient to address not only those, but anything else that comes to the end of the project. But I just wanted to highlight some things we're expecting to see coming down the road.
I don't know if am I the only new member of the committee?
Bruce as well. Yep.
I was gonna wonder if we could ask some general questions about the budget, because I'd never really looked at it before, and it's hard to understand if you don't know what some of it is, but. So the contractor's contingency, is that because the contract allows overages and that's where you pull it out of, or is that, you already described the county contingency stuff, which is things you can add, but what is this contingency?
General explanation is that contingency is there to complete the intent of the drawings of the plans and specs. So and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Corey, but if they go through and they had bid out, a certain trade, and the low bidder, for whatever reason falters and can't continue to, complete the project, the cost difference between them and the next sub would be used out of the GC contingency. Or it may be where there was
Waterproof.
water.
Well, they are, you
water
don't have
was a good
firm bids
example.
on your estimate, you have an estimate of what this is gonna cost, but you don't really have firm.
Oh, no,
bids.
it's completely bid out with all
Like
of that.
fall through or.
Yeah, so just from my own personal experience, I've had some contractors that have faltered through the middle of a project. That's
Yeah.
just an example. And probably a better example is waterproofing that we discovered during the excavation of the basement of the existing building. There was a lot of existing waterproofing that had to be replaced. That wasn't in the original scope of work, so contingency was used for that. So
I think you said completing the intent of the plans and specifications, right? And we always use the example of architectural shows something that the intent, but maybe mechanical didn't pick it up, right? It could be a hose bib on the outside of the building or something like that. So the intent is there. We know that we should have had something, but the bidders are gonna look at that and go, I didn't see piping, I didn't see the thing, so. That's
So then you negotiate with them whether they were supposed to see it or not.
Yeah, I mean, my first step is always to fight on behalf of the county and the project and argue reasonable inference before. But that's also why we collect a lot of data at the beginning for our bids, so a full breakdown, so it's similarly, it's easy to say, look, I feel like you had it, you listed something here, I'm gonna push back on you in this case, and we've done that already quite a bit. I mean, case in point, the fact that we're this far along on the project and we've touched so little of construction contingency is a case for really good trade partners good buyout, and that sort of thing. Now, we've had, up to this point, we've also had very few. We've had our main trade partners in structural concrete. Now we're gonna have,
Yeah, you're gonna have all this
interior
business,
framing
yeah.
and finishes and all that. So we're gonna be onboarding a lot of subs who have been on the sidelines for a while now. But yeah, that answers your question.
Yeah. My next question was on the administration costs. Here's, it says you're about halfway through the cost of the project, but you've used up, looks like almost 75% of the administration. So
Yeah,
is that just gonna be,
I can touch.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so part of that is that the administration is for a much longer time period than the construction part of the work. And is a smaller portion of the overall cost. So Cumming Group has been on the project the very longest. And they've completed the most of their scope, whereas Pence has completed about half, I think to 60%. Cumming Group's closer to 80% to 90% of their scope.
but there's enough money in there, it shows there's only 177 left.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
enough money to finish the job of that much.
There is, yeah.
Based on the current burn rate each month, we're covered to the
Yeah.
budget.
You know, Cumming Group has been on the project since 2022.
But that's a good question. Yeah, there are certain line items that are spent either heavily at the beginning or at the end, and so they don't match up with our progress.
Then on the, I was at a meeting, not your last meeting, but the meeting before that, when they were talking about, you were talking about the plan checks and all the increases by the city. And I always wondered, you know, as the county, we always did all these favors for the city. Did the city ever do any favors? I mean, it's their courthouse too. I mean, this beautiful thing in downtown Bend, and that they were. Cause it seems like they really went over the permits, but.
Do you-
Someone would miss a statement on the record.
Yeah,
No, I mean, I think about it, cause we've, you know, it's like. All the land where OSU's built was county land, we gave it to them, we didn't even.
Wasn't it $1?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I just was wondering with the city, cause it seemed like it was a huge number for.
Yeah.
permits and things.
I think, I just have a couple of thoughts. I don't know that I have a response or an answer, but a couple of thoughts are. One example of improving relations with the city and working really well with them is the Bond Street closure. That's gone well. That's an example of us working together. There's a right-of-way permit involved. There's some fees involved in order to do that. But we worked really well together on that. Big picture overall, when it came to system development charges, plan fee review charges, those are pretty set in terms of the city calculations. And so the county ends up paying those fees like Ben Lapine Schools would, or any other public or any other private entity or public entity. So,
That amount was already budgeted for.
yeah, you will see that,
Capital was.
yeah, well, you will see that some of those, it was difficult to budget within a particular line item. So overall, I think we were about 20, we're about 22,000 over budget. There were particular line items where we ended up moving those costs around because, for instance, say the plan check and permits were more than expected, but SDCs, what's another example?
They were up too.
Some of the,
Well, yeah, you have to combine those two line items there, plan check and permits and STC fees. So you'll notice that it was over on the permits, but we also had the balance on the STC charges. So overall, that section there is only
Did you have-
22,000.
We didn't spend any SDCs yet.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. It was combined. When we get the bill from the city for all the
Oh, there
permit
won't
fees.
be SDCs.
Correct.
Oh.
Yeah, there was a,
That was
Already
yeah,
paid.
that was wrong.
Yeah.
But as I said, this haven't been charged yet.
yeah, we kind of added the note over there, right, used for plan check and permits, so it was also used for STC fees. So those are all paid.
Don't it?
Yeah.
Well, then maybe they did work with you.
Yeah, original estimate was pretty close.
City.
It was within $22,000 of the original estimate.
any other budget related questions? So I touched on some of the risks we see coming up. Another thing to highlight, a change that you'll see at the next monthly update for the board and the next quarterly update for the committee is that we did just finance just completed a recalculation of the interest fees, and so they're now estimating about an additional $100,000 in interest on the funds that are waiting to be expended. And so an update that you'll see the next time this is published will be a reduction in the amount from reserves and an increase in the amount being spent from interest. So some positive news to end with on the budget front. Any final questions on the courthouse update?
No.
Next, like, you have questions, contractors contingencies this year back to the county.
No, it's 100% back to the county.
Yeah, never done. Yeah.
So to Bruce's questions, in some contracts, similar contracts, there'll also often be a share agreement where to incentivize savings at times, but where the contractor would keep 50% of the savings in the county. Our CMGC contract dictates that the full portion of the savings comes back to the county.
Well, great, thanks for all that. Very. And a lot of progress has been made from the very beginning, so good job. And it's on track, so that's exciting too. Is there any other comments or questions that anyone else wants to bring up? Where you go on the tour? I can't attend the tour today, so. The other? No?
Nope.
Yes.
I'll just add for members online as well. For those of you who aren't able to attend this tour, I'll just reach out to you for the next tour, that maybe for another group, so that you can get in on the next one.
If not, we're adjourned. You guys can enjoy the tour.